So here we have the right button and then the left button, and you see our game works as it did before, but now we have sound, we have clouds in the background. Overall, our game works, and that's what we wanted to achieve. What's up YouTube, this is Dennis Panuta for tutorialsEU. This is the last video of the codeless game that we're building, and in this part you're going to learn how to make the game a lot nicer and more beautiful by using assets from the asset store. And that is a very common practice, so don't feel ashamed for using external assets. You don't have to build everything yourself. There is this entire asset store available with loads of different assets like graphics, music, even physics, or like actual features that you need for your game and so forth. And this is super powerful and really recommended to use. So yeah, let's just do that. And before we do, please hit the like button and subscribe if you haven't done so already. And let's get started. In order to get to the asset store, you can just open the asset store window, and this will then potentially open up this window here, and you can click here search online, because the asset store has moved out of Unity itself. It's now only a web browser application, or it's only available in the web browser, so to speak. And here you now just need to select the right, well, assets. So the idea behind the asset manager is that there are a bunch of creators who create assets that game developers can then use for their games. Many of them are for free, others are not. So there are a bunch of free assets that you can use in order to make your game look better, or to add functionality to the game, or add sound to the game, and so forth. So there are a bunch of different assets out there, and there are even entire game packages, so to speak, where basically the game is already, and your job would just be to, well, finish the game, so to speak, add your own ideas to it and so forth. As you can see, there are almost 40,000 3D assets, 9,000 tools, over 8,000 2D assets, audios, templates, and virtual effects, and even more. Okay, so polygon packages and a bunch of more. So it's really great stuff, because you can really make your game look so much better using assets out there. So if you're not a designer and you don't want to design everything yourself, using assets from the asset store is great. So now let's search for low poly cloud pack. We're going to use a low poly cloud package, and there is a free version. So here you can see 3LE low poly cloud pack. And usually how this works is that the creator, in this case the Fallout nerd, creates a free package, and then he also has a paid package that is also by this person, which is then going to have additional assets available and so forth. So in our case, we're just going to use the ones that are available here. You can click through them and see the different assets that are inside of this package and that you can then use. So here we can just click on add to my assets, and therefore you need to be logged in with your Unity account. So make sure that you log into your Unity account, and if you don't have one, create one, and then you can add it to your assets. Then you need to read through the license agreement in terms of condition, and once you're done, you can click accept, once you want to accept, of course. So this will now be added to our assets, and we can now open them in Unity. So open the Unity editor, and here, in order to access your assets via the package manager, you need to sign in. By the way, the package manager is something you find once you go to the asset store here. You can open the package manager. If it says sign in here, you just need to click on it and then sign in with your Unity account. Once you are signed in, you will see the different packages that you have acquired. In my case, I am looking at this 3LE low poly cloud pack. In your case, you will probably have a lot less packages here. So I want to use this one. It comes from the asset store. It was created by the Fallout nerd in July 5th, 2016. He uploaded it. And now we can download it by clicking on this download button, and then click import once we are happy with it, and you see this Unity package importer will open up, where you can then select which items you want to add to your and which ones you don't want to. So in our case, we're just going to keep it simple and going to import all of them. But once you become a little more proficient with Unity, you will understand that it makes sense to only import the items that you are actually going to use, because otherwise your game will become potentially a lot bigger than it should be. So for example, if you have 400 megabytes of assets and you're just using 10 megabytes of them, then you're wasting 390 megabytes of space for the downloader of your game. So for the person who downloads your game. And that's not something that you want to do. So always optimize, but in this case, we just test it. So let's import all of them for now. This will then take a little while, and you might even get warnings here, as you see. And let's go ahead and go over to our console. You can see a polygon of mesh cloud so-and-so is self-intersecting and has been discarded. Well, that's all right. Let's clear all of that. What we want to do is we just want to use those clouds. And if you go to your assets, you will now find this new folder. And let me go down. You see 3LE low poly cloud pack. And by the way, I'm using the low poly cloud pack. You could use any other package here as well. You don't need to specifically use this package that I'm using. You could use anything else to make your game look a little better. So inside of this folder, you will find 3 folders: models, prefabs, and scenes. And I'm going to go to the prefabs folder. Basically, prefabs are prefabricated items that we can just directly drag into our game, and they are going to be finished game objects, so to speak, that we don't need to adjust after anymore, in most cases at least. So here you can just click on this and just drag it into your game like so, and then you will have this huge cloud, and you just need, of course, to adjust the position of it accordingly. So here, for example, let's position it at 0, 0, 0, and let's not rotate it at all. And then let's scale it down a notch towards all directions. Let's just make it 10% as big. So 0.1 for all coordinates, and then scroll back into our game. And you can see that this will now be the cloud that we have in our game. So now, of course, we can go ahead and just position the cloud somewhere else in the background. I'd say somewhere like this. And then if you look at the game, you see then in the background you now have this cloud, and like so it probably looks a little better. So now you can just play around with the clouds and just drag the ones in that you want to have in your game. And here maybe we scroll out a little bit and drag this huge set of clouds to a different position, something like this. Let's see. Well, it disappeared, so let me move it around a little bit like so. Okay, and now let's see how this is gonna look like. Okay, this looks a little better. So yeah, you can just play around with it. You can also change the rotation a little bit, the X rotation, for example, if you want the clouds to look a little more, you're looking at the clouds a little more from the top, for example, and so forth. So that's something that I would really recommend to play around with, just to see what you like and what you think will make your game look a little better and whatnot. Okay, you can change the settings of the clouds. You can always check in your game view if they're actually visible in your game or not. It's a little difficult to see like this, so always good to reset the cloud's position, and then they will basically start in the center of your game, and then just move them around a little bit so they are going to be at a better position like so. And now we have a bunch of clouds that are on top of each other. So that's something where I recommend to just play around with and see what you like most. That's in general something that you can do with the assets. These swirly clouds, well, they look cool and all, but do they really fit to our game? That's also something that you have to take into consideration when adding assets from external sources. Because while it might look good for one game, it doesn't mean that this will be good for another game. So you shouldn't mix low poly assets with super detailed other assets. So that's something you have to be careful with. So let's actually drag a couple more in here. And this time we can even reposition them once again. So reset this one, this cloud stratus. And you can see it's huge. So we can even position it like so, where it will be creating a little bit of of a shadow. So let me scale it down a notch as well. 0.5, 0.5, 0.5 maybe. And you could even position it behind the camera or so. Like this. Yeah. So yeah, basically, I guess you got the point. It's really about just testing around and see what looks good for you, how you want it to be, and so forth. Okay, so that's it for our clouds. And now let's actually use icons. Therefore, I'm going to go back to my asset store here and search for icons UI. And you will find this free icons UI here. And maybe this one won't be available at the point when you're looking at it, potentially, maybe not. So if it doesn't exist anymore, just use another icons package. I'm just going to use this one here. Read through the EULA. Once you're accepting it, you will be able to add it to your project. And now I'm going to open it in Unity. And here the icons UI will pop up. Otherwise, you just have to search for it where you have it in your package manager. Click on download. And once it's downloaded, we're going to add it. So here, once again, it's a lot bigger than it should be. So there are a bunch of images and we don't need all of them. So you can, of course, import all of them at the beginning and then get rid of the items that you don't need. Because in our case, we're going to keep it really, really simple. We're just going to replace our two button background images, so to speak. Okay, so let's go back to our assets folder, and you can see we have now icons UI, this folder, in which we have a bunch of icons and icons color here. So you can change the size of it like so, and then select the individual icons that you want to use. So I want to use the left arrow and the right arrow icons. So let me see if I find them. So in my case, it will be 55, which is this one here. That's the left arrow, and this one is the right arrow. So I will use those for the images of my buttons. Therefore, you can just go over to your canvas, go to your left button, for example, and then open up the image component. Click on this little circle here where the UI sprite is. So change the source image option. And there you can then select out of all of the images that you have in your assets. And I'm going to use 55 for the left button. So here, this one. Let's select that. You can see now it's there. Now, of course, we need to change the height of this button. So 160 times 160 is not going to cut it, which means we'll need to change that. So let's do maybe something like 100 times 100. This should be good. Then we can change the position up as well. So the X position of 50 and the Y position of 50 should be good now, like so. And now let's get rid of the text inside of the button as well. So we don't need this text anymore. You can see now the button itself is going to be fine. And the same goes for the right button. Okay, so here, select the image and it should be just after 55, so 60 here in my case. So let me select that. The position will be 50 and, well, the X position should be minus 50, I guess, like so. And here the width should be 100 and the height 100 also. Okay, now we can just take the text away here. We don't need the text anymore. And now we have polished our game. So let's run it real quick and to see how it's gonna look like. And actually, let me maximize on play. So there's this button called maximize on play, which allows you to basically maximize the game once you start it. So here we have the right button and then the left button. And you see our game works as it did before, but now we have sound, we have clouds in the background. And of course, you could still make your game look a lot better than what we have here. But overall, our game works, and that's what we wanted to achieve. So let me finish it. Once the ball is down here, click on the ball, you won, and the physics stop. At least the physics of our maze, but not the physics of the ball. So that's also something that you could change. Quick pause. The video that you're currently watching is just a fraction of the entire course that I have to offer. So I built this complete Unity Masterclass course in which you're going to learn how to build real games and how to build them from scratch. So you're going to learn how to build a platformer game, how to build a Space Invaders clone, how to build a Fruit Ninjas clone and optimize it for mobile and export it for mobile as well, how to build a first-person shooter game, and finally how to build a tycoon game similar to Adventurists, which is an endless game. So if you want to become a real game developer, definitely check out the course. You can find the link in the description and you will get the course with a huge discount, so don't hesitate, as you will not only get the course, but you will also get it in a structured manner with all of the code, as well as a Q&A section with a 5-star support. So get the course now. I hope to see you there. I would like to give you a little bit of a challenge, and the challenge is to create a different maze, because the maze that we created was a little simple, I'd say. So look at this maze here. You can see that we have crosses, different sizes of crosses, and now once we start the game, it's going to be even cooler, because now it's not just crosses, but the crosses are also moving and moving in different directions. So you know how to move things around, how to add a torque to an item. Now you just need to go ahead and try to build this. So basically, if you build the exact same maze that I have here, you will have reproduced quite a bit of what we have learned throughout this chapter. So I would really recommend to try this out, try to add moving objects, because if we play the game now and we move things around, so let's get started moving our ball down, you will see, well, actually, because we're fast enough, it's going to be pulled up. And then if we're not fast enough, oh, the ball is getting pushed through. So yeah, basically it's a lot more difficult this way because the moving parts are going to push the ball away as well. And that is something that you should try to implement into your game. Okay, so another thing that I mentioned a little earlier that I wanted to add as well, and that is to reset the game once the game is over and we click on the player. Unfortunately, Unity doesn't offer this functionality entirely without code. So at least not as far as I'm aware. So if you find an option there, I'd be super happy about it. So here, the idea would be to reset the entire scene, but unfortunately that didn't work. So even if I were to add a scene here, like so, there is no function that allows me to reset the scene or load that scene. Okay, so that's unfortunately not possible. So we will have to go without this functionality for now. We're going to see later on how we can do things like that using code. But for now, a little challenge for you. Please go ahead and try that. And you can download the example project and you can look at how it was built. I will not go over how it was built, but you can already see that basically we have reproduced the wall right, had a ground as well, and we just changed the values. Of course, we could have given them different names, but what's more importantly, we added something called a force. And you see that we used the torque there for the parent, which contains both objects. So I'd say this was enough of a hint. I wish you good luck with that, and thanks a lot for following along in this chapter. In the next chapter, we're going to finally see how we can add code to our games and then, well, get a lot more freedom, because while Unity is amazing and offers you a lot of things, it doesn't offer you everything. So the biggest flexibility really comes through code, and that's what we're going to learn in the next chapter. Congratulations, you built your first game and you didn't write a single line of code yet. So now you should feel a lot more comfortable using Unity. You have seen different sides that Unity has to offer. Of course, there's still a lot more that you can learn when building games with Unity, but you have used the most important parts of Unity so far, and now it will be a lot easier to understand the next point in Unity once you come back to using it, as well as it will be a lot easier for you now to focus on coding, because that's what we are going to do in the next chapter. So we're going to look at how to use C# code in order to make our games a lot more customized, and we're going to do so by building 2 games. All right, so see you in the next chapter.